The morning had started like any other at the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in San Diego. The sun hovered low, casting long orange stripes across the gravel as recruits lined up for the live simulation exercise. It was supposed to be routine a tactical drill designed to push limits but never cross into danger. The instructors stood on the sidelines, clipboards in hand, observing every movement with the sharpness of hawks. Lieutenant Emma Davis adjusted her helmet strap, feeling the weight of the rifle against her shoulder. She was the only woman in her unit that morning. To some, that made her a target not of enemy fire, but of unspoken judgment. The recruits around her whispered quietly, trading smirks. Emma had gotten used to that sound, the subtle laughter of disbelief that followed her everywhere she went. Chief Ryan Cole, the supervising instructor, stepped forward. His presence silenced the murmurs instantly. Tall, sharp-eyed, and carrying the authority of a man who'd seen combat too many times, Cole scanned the recruits like a predator, searching for weakness. "This isn't a game," he barked. "Treat it like real combat. You move, you communicate, you execute. The second you freeze, someone dies. Clear?" A chorus of "Yes, Chief," echoed back. Emma's voice was steady among them. But inside, her pulse raced, not from fear, but focus. Every nerve was alive. Every sense tuned to detail. The wind direction, the sound of boots crunching gravel, the faint metallic click of rifles being readied. The whistle blew. Instantly, chaos erupted. Smoke grenades hissed, mock explosions thudded across the field, and commands echoed through headsets. The recruits scattered into formation, weaving between concrete barriers and steel shipping containers. Emma moved with calculated precision, covering her unit's rear flank. Her movements were fluid, silent, deliberate. Then it happened. A sudden crack tore through the noise. It was sharper, louder, heavier than any simulation round. The kind of sound that leaves no room for confusion. Real gunfire. Emma felt something slam into her left side hot, fast, searing. The impact spun her halfway around, and before she even understood what had happened, she was on the ground. The rifle clattered beside her. Dust filled her vision. For a heartbeat, she couldn't breathe. The exercise froze. "Hold fire. Hold fire." Cole's voice ripped through the air. Instructors and recruits froze mid-step. A medic sprinted forward, but even his boots seemed too slow. Smoke cleared, and the silence that followed was heavier than the explosion before it. Emma lay on her back, eyes open, chest rising shallowly. Her gloved hand pressed instinctively to her side, blood seeping through her uniform. The pain was there sharp, real, but her face didn't show it. Her expression was calm. Too calm. Cole dropped to his knees beside her, shouting orders. "Get me the field med kit, now!" A recruit handed him the pack with trembling hands. Cole's voice was firm, commanding, but beneath it was something else, fear. "Stay with me, Lieutenant," he said. "You hear me? Stay awake." Emma blinked once, slowly. "I'm awake," she murmured, voice almost indifferent. The medics arrived, led by Petty Officer Torres, the SEAL team's top corpsman. He knelt, glancing briefly at her wound. His practiced hands tore open gauze and bandages, pressing hard against the bleeding. "She's hit in the lower abdomen, small caliber, maybe ricochet. We need pressure now." Cole looked at Emma's face. There was no panic, no grimace. Just quiet, measured breathing. "How bad is it?" he asked. Torres shook his head. "She's losing blood. We need to move fast." But Emma didn't seem to hear them. Her mind had gone somewhere else, somewhere distant. In the echoing chaos of shouted orders and bootsteps, she found herself back in another place, another time. The acrid scent of burning metal filled her. Memory, sirens, screams, the sound of a man's heartbeat fading beneath her trembling hands. Her fiance's face flashed in her mind. She'd been here before. Back in the present, Torres pressed harder. Stay with me, Lieutenant. You need to keep talking. Tell me your name. Emma, she said softly. Good. Where are you right now? She looked up, her vision blurring, but her tone was maddeningly even. Training facility. San Diego. Cole frowned. He'd seen recruits get hit before. Even hardened SEALs couldn't keep calm when their body betrayed them. But this woman lay there, bleeding, speaking like she was delivering a weather report. Torres glanced at her eyes. Pulse steady. Breathing controlled. How are you doing that? Emma's lips twitched faintly something, between a smirk and a grimace. Habit. The word lingered in the air, like a secret. The recruits who'd once mocked her now stood frozen a few feet away, helmets off, eyes wide. None dared speak. The silence wasn't out of respect, it was fear. There was something unnerving about her calm, something almost inhuman about the way she refused to flinch. Torres leaned closer, still applying pressure. Ma'am, I need to know, do you have prior field experience? EMT? Combat medic anything? Her eyes flickered toward him. Something like that. Cole's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Emma's gaze shifted to the sky. The California sun was bright above her, cutting through the haze of smoke. She didn't answer. Instead, she exhaled slowly, counting breaths like she had done 1,000 times before. Inhale 4, exhale 6, slow the heartbeat, quiet the mind. Torres exchanged a look with Cole. She's doing self-regulated breathing, he muttered under his breath. That's advanced. Most medics can't pull that off when they're injured. Cole stared at her in disbelief. She's not supposed to know that. She's a logistics officer, not a field combatant. Emma blinked again, eyes fluttering slightly. The pain was creeping closer, but she kept it locked behind the calm. Don't waste time arguing, she said faintly. Patch me up first. Torres couldn't help but let out a low, incredulous laugh. Yes, ma'am, he said. He reached for the saline, setting up a drip as Cole held the gauze in place. The rest of the recruits were ushered away, but many lingered behind cover, watching the scene unfold. The air was thick with confusion. How could she be so composed? Why didn't she scream? Even Cole-hardened, trained, battle-tested felt a shiver crawl up his spine. He'd seen soldiers freeze, cry, pray, even laugh in shock. But never this. Never silence this complete. Minutes passed like hours. The bleeding slowed. The medevac was en route. Torres checked her vitals one more time. You're lucky, he said quietly. An inch higher, and it would have punctured your lung. Emma nodded, eyes half-lidded. Luck's relative. Her voice was soft, but every word carried a strange gravity, like she was speaking from a place deeper than the pain. Cole stared at her, trying to read the emotion behind those calm eyes, and found none. He finally spoke, almost to himself. You're not new to this, are you? Emma's lips parted slightly, but no sound came. Her gaze drifted toward the horizon. For a moment, the corners of her mouth lifted, a ghost of a smile. Then she whispered something that sent chills through both men. Once you've seen real war, training doesn't scare you anymore. Cole froze. Torres stopped rapping. The recruits nearby turned their heads. No one spoke. In that suspended moment, as the distant whir of the medevac approached, every man on that field realized that Lieutenant Emma Davis wasn't just another trainee. She was something else entirely, someone who carried a story carved into her silence. As the helicopter touched down and the medics lifted her onto the stretcher, Emma's eyes met Cole's one last time. Don't look so shocked, Chief, she murmured, voice fading into the rotor's roar. "I told you, I've been through worse." The blades thundered overhead. Dust rose in a blinding cloud. And as the helicopter lifted off, taking her away, the recruit stood motionless, hearts pounding, adrenaline still racing, each silently asking the same question. Who was she, really? Cole watched the chopper disappear into the distance, her words echoing in his mind. Once you've seen real war, training doesn't scare you anymore. He didn't know it yet. But that single line would unravel a truth that would shake the entire base and change everything they thought they knew about Lieutenant Emma Davis. 2 weeks after the accident, the training base in San Diego had returned to its usual rhythm, boots stomping in sync, whistles piercing the air, and the Pacific wind carrying the scent of sweat and salt. But beneath the surface, the entire compound hummed with a quiet rumor that refused to die. Lieutenant Emma Davis, the woman who'd been shot and hadn't flinched, had become the subject of hushed conversations in the mess hall, the dorms, and even the instructors' quarters. She didn't scream, didn't even twitch. Chief Cole said she was smiling while bleeding out. Each retelling made her sound more like a ghost story than a soldier. Chief Ryan Cole didn't correct them. He simply observed. That was his way. He'd spent 12 years in the SEALs, seen men break from exhaustion, seen others freeze at the sound of gunfire. But Emma's reaction that day didn't fit any pattern. It wasn't shock. It wasn't numbness. It was control. Cold, deliberate, terrifying control. And that bothered him. He'd read her file 3 times. Age, 29. Previous occupation, EMT, Texas State Emergency Services. Education, Bachelor's in Medical Sciences. Military service, 2 years Navy logistics, non-combat role. Nothing explained her reaction. Nothing explained how she could breathe evenly while bleeding out. Nothing explained that haunted look in her eyes. He found himself at the infirmary window that afternoon, coffee in hand, watching her through the glass. She was sitting upright on the hospital bed, 4 tube in one arm, bandage still visible under her gown. A book rested in her lap, The Art of War. Of course it was. She noticed him before he could turn away. Her eyes met his through the glass. For a moment, neither moved. Then, with that same quiet calm, she raised a hand in greeting. Cole exhaled. "You're something else, Lieutenant," he muttered under his breath. Inside the room, Emma closed her book. The truth was, she'd grown used to being watched. People didn't stare out of admiration. They stared out of confusion. She could handle that. What she couldn't handle was pity. When the door opened, she already knew who it was. "Chief," she said without looking up. Cole stepped inside, boots clicking against the sterile floor. "You heal fast," he said. "Quitting's not an option," she replied. He studied her, the steady tone, the unblinking gaze. "You know what everyone's saying, right?" "I've heard versions," she said, closing her book. "None accurate." Cole leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Then make it accurate. What happened out there?" Emma paused, looking past him to the sunlight spilling through the blinds. "What happened," she said slowly, "was a mistake. A round went off. I got hit. I stayed calm. You stayed calm like you'd been hit before," Cole pressed. Her lips curved faintly. "Is that a question or an accusation?" He didn't answer. He just looked at her, long enough for her to feel the weight of his curiosity. Finally, she sighed. "I've seen people die before, Chief," she said quietly. "And panic never saved any of them." Cole's jaw clenched. "That's not in your file." "Not everything fits neatly into a file," she replied, meeting his gaze. For a moment, the room was silent, except for the faint hum of the 4 pump. Then Cole pushed off the wall. "You're supposed to be cleared for discharge tomorrow," he said. "But I'm recommending you stay out of field training for another week." Denied. He turned sharply. "Excuse me?" She straightened, her expression firm. "With respect, Chief, I'm not sitting here while everyone out there decides what story to believe about me." Cole took a step closer. "You got shot, Lieutenant. You're lucky it wasn't worse. Most people would take that as a sign to rest." "I'm not most people." Her tone wasn't arrogant. It was matter of fact, like she was stating the weather. Cole realized she truly believed it. "Fine," he said finally. "You're cleared for light duty only. Physical assessment in 3 days. Thank you, Chief." As he walked out, he caught her reflection in the glass again. Her eyes weren't tired or weak. They were calculating, like someone preparing for a battle no one else could see. 3 days later, Emma was back on the training field. Her wound wasn't fully healed, but she refused to show it. She ran drills with silent precision, her movements crisp, efficient. The other recruits stole glances at her, a mix of awe and disbelief. During the endurance run, one of them, Reed, couldn't resist. "Hey, Lieutenant," he called, jogging beside her, smirk painted across his face. "You think staying quiet makes you tougher?" Emma didn't respond. He chuckled. "Come on, don't tell me you're scared to talk now." Still nothing. He pushed further. "Maybe you're just lucky you didn't bleed out. Bet that calm face of yours would have changed real quick then." Before he could finish, Emma turned her head slightly, voice low and even. When you've held someone's hand while they died screaming, you stop wasting words on noise. Reed stumbled, thrown off by the coldness in her tone. She didn't slow down. From the sidelines, Cole watched the exchange. His expression didn't change, but inside, something tightened. That line, that exact tone, he'd heard it before. From medics who'd been in combat zones overseas. From people who'd seen things that stayed behind their eyes forever. He made a note to talk to her again. That evening, the recruits gathered in the mess hall. Laughter filled the air, trays clattered, and the smell of overcooked stew lingered like always. But when Emma walked in, the noise dropped a few decibels. Some nodded in greeting. Others just stared. Reed whispered to another recruit, "Told you, she's not normal. No one's that calm unless they've been." Before he could finish, the door opened. Chief Cole entered, tray in hand. Instantly, every voice quieted. He sat across from Emma. "You always eat alone?" he asked. "I prefer quiet," she said. He studied her a moment, then asked, "Why'd you join the Navy, Davis?" She looked up, expression unreadable. "Because I owed someone." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Owed?" Her eyes flickered with something pain, maybe. "He died wearing the uniform. I figured someone should keep the promise he couldn't." There it was again, that haunting calm, the kind that came from people who'd already made peace with pain. Cole didn't press. Not yet. But as he stood, he said something that made her pause mid-bite. "Whatever you went through before you got here," he said quietly, "you might want to tell someone. Secrets don't stay buried long in this line of work." She didn't look up. "Then I hope they dig fast," she replied. Cole walked away, shaking his head. He'd trained hundreds of recruits, but none had ever unnerved him the way she did. That night, as the lights dimmed in the barracks, Emma sat by her bunk, rolling the dog tag between her fingers. The engraved name caught the faint moonlight. Staff Sergeant Michael Hayes, her fiancé. The sound of waves crashed faintly beyond the base. She closed her eyes, and the memory played again, his voice calling for help. The distant thunder of explosions, her hands shaking as she tried to stop the bleeding. She had promised him she wouldn't let fear own her life. And she never had. But sometimes, courage came at a price, and hers was silence. The next morning, she arrived on the training field before sunrise, alone. She stood there, breathing in the salt air, eyes on the horizon. Chief Cole approached quietly. "You're early." "I like watching the sun come up," she said. "Reminds me that no matter how bad yesterday was, it ended." He gave a small nod. "You ever going to tell me who taught you to stay that calm under pressure?" Emma glanced at him, her face unreadable. "Maybe someday, Chief," she said. "But you wouldn't like the answer." He frowned. "Try me." She smiled faintly, stepping past him. "Let's just say my first training ground didn't have safety drills." As she walked away, Cole felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. For the first time in his career, he realized he wasn't just training a soldier. He was standing in the shadow of someone who'd already lived through her own private war. And she hadn't lost. The sun hadn't yet risen over Coronado Beach when the recruits lined up in formation, boots sinking into damp sand, breath fogging in the cold air. The Pacific stretched endlessly before them, dark and unforgiving. It wasn't just water. It was a test, the kind that stripped soldiers down to their soul. Chief Ryan Cole walked in front of them, his silhouette black against the gray dawn. "This," he said, voice cutting through the wind, "is where the weak find out what they're made of, and where the strong stop pretending." Emma Davis stood in the second row, eyes forward. Her wound had healed, but the scar beneath her ribs still ached with every breath. She didn't mind. Pain was familiar. Pain was proof she was alive. Cole stopped in front of her. "Lieutenant Davis," he said, "you sure you're cleared for this?" "Yes, Chief." "You get hypothermia. Don't say I didn't warn you." Her lips twitched faintly. "I'll manage." He looked at her for a beat longer than necessary, then turned away. "Instructors, take them out." The whistle shrieked. Instantly, the recruits sprinted into the freezing waves. The water hit like glass, shocking the breath from their lungs. Cries erupted, curses, gasps, desperate shouts. The Pacific was merciless, swallowing bodies whole before spitting them out again. Emma moved deliberately, slow but steady, every movement measured. She'd been in colder waters, under darker skies. The chill wasn't the enemy. Panic was. She kept her breathing rhythmic, counting silently. Inhale, exhale. Control the body, control the mind. A recruit beside her, Reed, thrashed violently. Can't feel my legs." He yelled, "Keep your head above water." Another barked. Emma reached him, grabbing his vest. "Focus on my voice," she said firmly. "Breathe. You're not dying. Your body's lying to you." Reed's panicked eyes met hers. The steadiness there was like an anchor. Slowly, he began to match her breathing. The shaking eased. Cole watched from the shore, arms crossed, the faintest glimmer of surprise in his eyes. "She's not just surviving," he muttered. "She's leading." After 20 brutal minutes, the recruits stumbled back to the sand. Their lips were blue, their hands numb. The instructors ordered them to drop and roll, covering themselves in gritty mud before plunging back into the water again. The ocean didn't care who they were. It treated them all the same. But it was clear that for some, it was winning. Emma's body trembled uncontrollably now, but her mind was locked in discipline. Pain is temporary. Focus is forever. Reed collapsed beside her, groaning. "I can't do this," he gasped. "Yes, you can," Emma said quietly. "No, her tone sharpened. "Then drown trying." That startled him. Her words weren't cruel. They were fierce, real, cutting through weakness like steel. Something in her voice told him she'd seen real drowning before. Cole's eyes narrowed. That voice again. That unbreakable calm. After the drills, the recruits were lined up shivering and covered in mud. One instructor shouted, "Who wants to quit?" No one answered. "Don't lie to me." The instructor yelled, pacing. "Raise your hand if you're done." A few hands went up, trembling, ashamed. The instructor nodded. "Get out of my line. Go back to your warm beds." The Navy needs secretaries too. The rest remained still, teeth chattering. Cole walked the line slowly. When he reached Emma, she was staring straight ahead, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond the horizon. "Still alive, Davis?" "Still here, Chief." He studied her face. No bitterness, no pride, just quiet endurance. He nodded. "We'll see how long that lasts." That night, the recruits collapsed into their bunks, bodies sore beyond comprehension. The barracks echoed with groans and muffled curses. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, wrapping her hands with medical tape. Her fingers were raw, skin peeling from the salt and sand. Across from her, Reed watched. "You don't feel pain, do you?" he asked. She looked up. "Pain's just information." He frowned. "You sound like a robot." Emma smiled faintly. "Robots don't dream." "I do." "What about?" She hesitated, then whispered, "About people I couldn't save." Reed said nothing. He didn't need to. The next day brought another kind of hell. Hell Week simulation, designed to push recruits beyond breaking. They were sleep-deprived, hungry, and constantly wet. The Pacific became their home, the mud their blanket. Emma's focus never faltered. Even when her body begged to collapse, her mind refused to yield. Cole observed her closely. He saw how she carried others, literally, sometimes, through drills when they fell. He saw how she kept her words sharp, simple, commanding. No theatrics, just survival. On the third night, while others trembled near the bonfire during a brief rest, Cole approached her. "You ever think about quitting?" he asked quietly. Emma didn't look at him. "Every second. And yet you're still here." "That's the difference," she said softly. "Thinking about it and doing it." He smirked. "You really believe you belong here?" Her eyes finally met his. "No, Chief," she said. "I believe I've earned here." There was no arrogance in her tone, just conviction. Cole found himself caught off guard. He'd trained men who talked tough, but this was different. She wasn't performing strength. She was it. Later that night, a storm rolled in from the Pacific. The sky cracked open, and rain slammed the beach like shards of ice. The recruits huddled together, exhausted. The instructors, unmoved, ordered them into the surf again. "Get in that water. Let's see who wants to be a SEAL." The waves crashed violently. One by one, they trudged in. Emma was the first. She dove under, salt burning her eyes, lungs tightening from the cold. The ocean roared above her like a living beast. When she surfaced, lightning flashed for a heartbeat. Her face was illuminated against the storm. Calm, controlled. Cole saw it and felt something twist inside him. That same haunting calm. He couldn't explain why it unsettled him so deeply. After hours, they were finally ordered out. Recruits stumbled to shore, barely conscious. Emma walked steady, though her lips were purple. Cole wrapped a towel around her shoulders without a word. "You're out of your mind," he muttered. "Maybe," she said. "But I'm still standing." He almost smiled. For now. When dawn broke, the storm had passed, leaving behind silence and wreckage, broken gear, footprints, discarded helmets. The recruits lined up again, hollow-eyed but alive. Cole addressed them, voice hoarse. "What you survived this week was designed to break you. Some of you are still here. That means you've earned my respect, but not my trust. Not yet. His gaze swept the line and landed on Emma. Especially you, Lieutenant. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. Understood, Chief. As he turned away, he couldn't help but wonder, how far could she go before even the ocean couldn't break her? That evening, Torres, the SEAL medic who treated her weeks before, stopped by the barracks. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her clean her rifle. Heard you scared the ocean today, he joked. Emma glanced up, amused. You give it enough time, it scares you back. Torres studied her. You ever going to tell anyone where you really learned that kind of composure? Her hands paused. What makes you think there's a story? Because I've seen soldiers under fire, ma'am. And I've seen trauma responses. You don't react like either. She smiled faintly. Maybe I just adapt fast. Torres shook his head. No, you remember fast. That's different. She didn't reply. He sighed and stood straight. Well, whatever trained you, it's damn impressive. Even Chief Cole's starting to run out of ways to test you. As he left, Emma's calm expression faltered for the first time. Her hand drifted to the small silver chain under her shirt, the one with Michael Hayes's dog tag. She closed her eyes and whispered, Not yet, Mike. I'm not done. The wind outside carried the faint crash of the waves, distant and endless. The sea had tested her, tried to drown her, tried to find her breaking point, and failed. Because for Emma Davis, the war had never started on this beach. It had started long before, and it was far from over. The days after Hell Week passed in a blur of exhaustion and repetition. Every sunrise bled into another drill. Every night ended with bruised muscles and aching lungs. Yet something had changed. Emma Davis wasn't just another trainee anymore. She had become a quiet legend within the camp, the one who never complained, never quit, and somehow always helped others push through their limits. But legends attract curiosity, and curiosity in Coronado was dangerous. Chief Ryan Cole had noticed that curiosity spreading like a current through the barracks. Recruits whispered at mealtimes. Instructors exchanged knowing looks. They all asked the same question. Who is Lieutenant Davis, really? It was late evening when it happened. The med bay smelled faintly of antiseptic and sea salt. The overhead lights hummed quietly. Emma sat on the exam table, her fatigues rolled up to her knees as Torres, the SEAL medic, cleaned a deep scrape from the previous day's obstacle course. Hold still, he murmured. She did. Her expression didn't even flinch when the antiseptic burned. Torres shook his head. You're unbelievable. Most people would be screaming. I've had worse, she said softly. Yeah? He glanced up. You say that like you mean it. She smiled faintly. Meaning comes with repetition. Torres chuckled, with something about her tone made him pause. He'd seen people broken, bleeding, dying, but she had an absence in her eyes, a quiet so heavy it made him uneasy. He dabbed the last bit of blood away and taped the gauze neatly. You know, Cole's been talking about you. Emma raised a brow. That can't be good. He says you move like you've already done this before. Like you've been trained somewhere else. Said it's not just instinct, it's conditioning. Emma's hand froze on her knee. Is he right? Torres asked lightly. Where'd you learn that kind of discipline? The room went dead still. Even the hum of the lights seemed to vanish. Torres looked up and instantly regretted asking. Her face hadn't changed, but her eyes had. The calm blue turned sharp, distant, like she'd vanished somewhere inside herself. He waited for an answer. She gave none. Finally, she stood, rolling her pant leg down. My training came from life, Chief. But the way she said it, slow, deliberate, and detached, made the hairs on his neck stand up. Later that night, The barracks buzzed with quiet gossip. Torres hadn't told anyone directly, but rumors spread faster than fire. By the next morning, every recruit knew the medic had asked her something, and that something had changed in the air ever since. Even Cole noticed. During morning drills, Emma was flawless as ever, but there was a subtle shift, a distance in her focus, as if part of her mind had gone somewhere else entirely. After the session, Cole caught up to Torres. "What the hell did you say to her?" Torres looked uneasy. "Just asked about her training." Cole scowled. "You what?" "I didn't mean anything by it. Just she's different, Chief. You see it too." Cole folded his arms. "Yeah, but you don't poke the quiet ones, Torres. Especially not the ones who act like they've seen ghosts." Torres frowned. "So you think she's hiding something?" Cole's jaw tightened. "I think she's survived something." That afternoon, they were sent to the kill house, an abandoned warehouse used for live-fire tactical drills. It was one of the most dangerous exercises in SEAL training. Sharp corners, real rounds, zero tolerance for mistakes. Cole divided them into teams of 4. Emma was team lead. Her team included Reed Torres, acting as observer, and another recruit named Foster. "Rules are simple," Cole barked. "Hostiles in red. Hostages in blue. Shoot wrong. Fail the mission. Move fast. Think faster." He glanced at Emma. "Let's see if life taught you that too." Emma nodded once. No emotion. Just readiness. The buzzer sounded. They stormed in, rifles up, boots pounding the concrete. The first target popped from behind a pillar, red vest, weapon raised. Emma's shot dropped him instantly, clean through the chest plate. "Move, move," she ordered. They advanced in sync. 2 corners, 1 stairwell, 1 unknown sector. Her commands were crisp, decisive, no hesitation. Foster hesitated before a doorway. "I think there's movement." Emma kicked the door open and fired twice. The target fell, red vest smoking. Torres muttered under his breath, "Holy hell." They cleared the entire building in 93 seconds. Cole's stopwatch beeped. He stepped forward slowly, expression unreadable. "That's near record time," he said. "How?" Emma lowered her rifle, breathing steady. "We trusted the process." He stared at her, knowing that wasn't the real answer. That evening, in the mess hall, the whispers grew louder. Reed leaned across the table. "They say you were Special Forces before this. Or CIA. Or maybe MI6. Emma didn't look up from her tray. "People say a lot of things when they're tired." Torres sat down beside her, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I shouldn't have asked earlier." She glanced at him briefly. "You asked a fair question." He frowned. "Then give me a fair answer." The spoon froze halfway to her mouth. For a long moment, she said nothing. The silence spread like a shadow. One by one, voices around the table faded as people noticed the tension. Finally, Emma set the spoon down. "When I was 19, she began softly, I joined a private response unit overseas. We weren't part of any flag. We were the people who went in when everyone else pulled out." Reed blinked. "Mercs?" "No," her tone sharpened. "Rescuers." She stared at her tray, the edges of her voice trembling just slightly. "There was a mission in Syria. A school hit by crossfire. We were ordered to extract civilians. But we were ambushed. My unit didn't make it out. She stopped, jaw tightening. "I had to train myself to stay alive. That's all the training anyone needs." The room was dead silent. Even Cole, standing near the door, paused mid-step. Torres swallowed hard. "That's heavy." Emma finally looked up, eyes glinting with something unspoken. "You asked where my discipline comes from. It comes from knowing what happens when you lose it. No one said a word after that. Cole turned away quietly, but his expression wasn't one of suspicion anymore. It was respect and something else. Guilt. That night, rain fell again, soft and steady against the windows. Emma sat alone on the pier behind the barracks, staring out at the dark sea. The waves moved slow, almost gentle, but their sound reminded her of explosions, the rhythm of chaos. Cole approached quietly, hands in his pockets. "You're not supposed to be out here," he said. "Neither are you." He smirked. "Touché." They stood in silence for a moment. Finally, he said, "You didn't have to tell them." She shrugged. "Truth doesn't need permission. You realize most people would have quit after that kind of past." "I did quit," she said softly. "For a long time." He studied her face. "And now?" Her gaze stayed on the waves. "Now I'm just trying to prove that survivors can still serve." Cole nodded slowly. "You already did." She looked at him then, and for the first time, her expression softened, just slightly. But before either could speak again, Torres appeared at the edge of the dock, out of breath. "Chief, Lieutenant, you need to come. Now." They followed him back inside, where alarms blared through the compound. The training deck was flooded with red lights. In the center, an instructor knelt beside a collapsed recruit Foster, unconscious and bleeding from the head. Cole knelt beside him, shouting orders. "Get med support. Davis, stay back." But Emma was already kneeling, checking the pulse. Her movements were too fast, too precise, like muscle memory from somewhere else. Torres watched in stunned silence. She worked with calm authority, even as chaos erupted around them. Within seconds, she had stabilized Foster's airway and found the bleeding source. Cole stared at her, realization dawning. "That's not battlefield rescue training," he said slowly. "That's advanced combat medic work." Emma didn't look up. "You wanted to know where I learned. Now you know." Foster was airlifted out that night. He survived, thanks to Emma's intervention. When the chaos settled, the recruits were silent, not out of fear, but awe. They'd seen something real, something raw. And from that night on, no one ever questioned where Emma Davis came from. Because whatever her past was, it had clearly forged something stronger than any SEAL could imagine. Still, in the silence of her bunk, Emma stared at the ceiling, the medic's question echoing in her head. "Where did you learn that kind of composure?" She finally whispered to herself. "In the places no one ever comes back from." Outside, the ocean crashed against the shore, restless, relentless, as if it too was waiting for the rest of her story to surface. The base returned to silence after the medevac helicopter disappeared into the clouds. The recruits stood scattered in the rain-soaked yard, their faces pale and tired. The red lights had faded, but the memory of chaos still pulsed through the air. Emma Davis stood alone at the edge of the field, her fatigues drenched, her eyes following the distant blinking of the helicopter lights. For everyone else, the night had ended. For her, it had only just begun. Chief Ryan Cole approached quietly. His boots squelched in the wet sand as he stopped beside her. "You saved him," he said. Emma didn't turn. "That's my job." "No," he said, voice lower now. "That's not your job. You're a trainee, not a medic." That was surgical precision. You knew exactly what to do, where to press, what artery to isolate. That's not something you pick up in a rescue unit. Her jaw tightened. "Does it matter?" Cole's gaze hardened. "It does to me." Finally, she faced him. Her eyes were shadowed, unreadable. "Then maybe stop trying to solve me, Chief. I'm not a code to crack." He stepped closer. "You were military before, weren't you?" She didn't answer. Which branch? He pressed. Her voice turned flat. The kind that doesn't exist on paper. Cole studied her for a long moment. The way she stood, the scars barely visible under her sleeve, the quiet command in her posture. It all made sense now. You were in covert operations. Her silence was confirmation enough. The next morning, training resumed like nothing had happened. But the energy on base had shifted. The recruits watched Emma differently, not with jealousy, but with reverence. She had saved one of their own. She had faced blood and panic like it was nothing. Even Cole treated her differently. During navigation drills, he called her aside. "You're leading a fire team today." Emma blinked. "Sir, you heard me. Team Bravo. You're in charge of coordination, radio signals, and route analysis." "I thought leadership trials were next month." "They are," Cole said. "You're ahead of schedule." A few recruits murmured nearby, surprised. Cole silenced them with a glare. "Any objections?" No one spoke. "Good," he said. "Move out." The exercise began at dawn. The teams were dropped deep in the canyons north of San Diego, each with a compass, a map, and limited rations. Their goal: reach the extraction point within 24 hours, without being detected by tracking units from the instructor corps. Emma took point, compass steady in her hand. Her team, Reed, Torres, and a new recruit named Vickers, followed her through the brush. The terrain was rugged, with steep ravines and sharp stones that tore at their boots. The air smelled of sage and dust. The further they moved, the quieter it became. Reed whispered, "You sure this is the right way?" Emma studied the map, eyes flicking between coordinates. "We're close to the ridge line. We'll camp just beyond it. Less exposure." Torres grinned. "You've done this before, huh?" She didn't smile. "Once or twice." By evening, the group had set up a small shelter under a cluster of boulders. The sunset painted the sky in hues of blood and gold. For the first time in days, there was peace, the kind that came just before the storm. Reed was dozing. Torres was cleaning his rifle, and Vickers was scribbling notes in his field log. Emma sat apart, sharpening a combat knife, the rhythmic scrape echoing softly in the canyon. Torres finally broke the silence. "You never said why you joined the SEALs." Emma didn't look up. "Because they told me I couldn't." He smirked. "That's it? That's everything." Torres laughed softly. "You're impossible, you know that?" She shrugged. "Impossible people build impossible lives." Before he could reply, a faint crack echoed from the distance, a branch breaking. Emma froze. In a heartbeat, she signaled silence, pressing a finger to her lips. The team went still. Another sound, movement, slow, careful, not an animal. Emma motioned to the ridge. Eyes up. Seconds later, a flash of light reflected off a scope in the distance. Sniper. Reed hissed, "Down." Emma barked. They hit the dirt as a silenced shot whistled overhead, embedding into a nearby rock. Torres swore under his breath. "This isn't part of training." Emma's expression was pure focus now. She scanned the tree line. "Move south. Stay low. Someone's shadowing us." "How do you know?" Reed whispered. "Because they're hurting us," she said grimly. "This isn't random." They crawled through the brush, mud streaking their faces. Every few seconds, another silent shot rang out. Precise warning shots, not kill shots. Torres whispered, "If this is an instructor test, it's gone too far." Emma stopped suddenly, eyes narrowing. "It's not instructors. It's them?" Reed frowned. "Them who?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her radio. Bravo team to command, come in. Static. No response. She tried again. Bravo team to command, radio check. Nothing. The signal was jammed. Her pulse quickened, not with fear, but recognition. This was a tactic she knew too well. She turned to Torres. We're not in a drill anymore. By nightfall, they had reached the base of a narrow gorge. The moonlight spilled faintly over the rocks. They set up a defensive perimeter, rifles ready. Torres whispered, "What the hell's going on, Davis?" Emma crouched beside him. "A year ago, my old unit extracted hostages from a warlord in Idlib. We intercepted arms meant for a black market network. The man funding it wasn't caught." Reed's eyes widened. "You think they found you?" Her silence was answer enough. Torres exhaled. "Jesus, you're saying someone's come here on your soil for you?" She nodded slowly. "They don't need to kill me. They just need to make me disappear." Suddenly, a rustle came from behind the rocks. Emma signaled to hold fire. She moved like a ghost, quiet, swift, circling behind the sound. Her knife glinted briefly as she pounced, pinning a figure to the ground. A startled cry, and then she stopped. It wasn't an enemy. It was a naval intelligence observer, their training evaluator. He stared up at her, breathless. "Lieutenant Davis, stand down. It's a test." Emma froze, knife trembling in her grip. Torres and Reed appeared behind her, guns half raised. "A test?" she said, voice shaking slightly. The man nodded quickly. "Simulated ambush scenario. Command wanted to test your response under uncertainty. Radio blackout was intentional." Emma slowly stepped back, disbelief washing over her. Cole's voice suddenly crackled through the earpiece. Static first, then clear. "Bravo team, this is command. Stand down. Repeat, stand down. Exercise complete." Emma exhaled shakily, lowering her weapon. Torres muttered, "That was messed up." Reed wiped sweat from his brow. "They nearly gave us heart attacks." But Emma wasn't listening. She was staring into the darkness beyond the ridge, at nothing and everything. Her mind was still on the shadows she'd seen, the cold precision of those shots. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the truth. Those bullets hadn't come from blanks. When they returned to base the next morning, Cole was waiting. He said nothing as the team filed past him. When Emma stopped, he looked her squarely in the eyes. "You froze that test, didn't you?" Her lips tightened. Define froze. You went back somewhere. Somewhere real. She met his gaze. "You have no idea how real." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time I did." She hesitated, uncertain. Cole's voice softened. "If there's something chasing you, Lieutenant, I need to know before it reaches this base." Her eyes flickered, that same flash of pain, regret, and buried memory. Finally, she said, "Then you'd better listen carefully, Chief, because this doesn't stay in the past anymore." That night, she told him everything. The ambush in Idlib, the betrayal inside her own unit, the man who ordered her team's death, a contractor codenamed Spectre. She'd survived by playing dead, crawling through her own blood to escape. Cole listened in silence, expression unreadable. When she finished, she whispered, "They'll come again. They always do." He leaned forward. "Then we'll be ready." Her eyes met his, two soldiers bound by survival, staring into a war that hadn't ended, only changed its battlefield. Outside, thunder rolled again over the Pacific. The storm was coming back. And this time, it wasn't just weather. The base was quiet that night, deceptively so. The ocean's roar masked smaller, subtler movements, a shadow slipping along the perimeter, a light flickering in a distant tower. Emma Davis sat on her bunk, her rifle across her lap, eyes fixed on the horizon. The storm from the previous day had passed, leaving only a cold wind that smelled faintly of salt and ozone. She replayed the events from the canyon in her mind. The simulated sniper? Too precise. The blackout? Too perfect. No one had trained them like that, not in Coronado. Somewhere, deep in her gut, a warning stirred. Cole appeared at the doorway, hands on his hips. "You've been quiet since Hell Week." Emma didn't look at him. "I've been thinking." "About?" "The last mission," she said softly. "About Spectre." Cole froze. "You think he's here?" Emma nodded slowly. "I know he is." Cole's jaw tightened. "Then we need a plan." The alarm came without warning. Red lights flashed through the barracks, blaring klaxons echoing over the base. "Intruder alert! Intruder alert!" Emma sprang from her bunk, grabbing her rifle. Her movements were sharp, precise. Every motion betrayed decades of practice, though in reality it had been less than a lifetime. She had learned this in places where failure meant death, where hesitation meant blood. Cole met her outside. "What do you see?" "Shadows along the eastern fence line," she replied. "Small team tactical deer. Not instructors." Torres and Reed joined them, weapons at the ready. "Are we evacuating or engaging?" Reed asked nervously. Emma didn't hesitate. "Engage. Contain. Minimal exposure." Cole's lips pressed into a line. "Lead the team, Lieutenant." They moved as one, flowing like water through the darkness. Emma directed silently, hand signals instead of words. Shadows shifted in response. She was already anticipating enemy movement. 2 men in black tactical suits moved near the supply depot. Emma took point, signaling Torres and Reed to flank. Her heartbeat remained steady. Her eyes scanned for even the slightest motion. Then she froze. A third shadow emerged, larger, deliberate, and armed with precision. Spectre. Her breath hitched. Cole's hand rested on her shoulder. "Davis," he said quietly. "Stay focused. Remember your training." She nodded, lips pressed tight. Memories flashed, crawling through rubble, holding dying comrades, tasting blood and fear, and learning the only way to survive was to stay calm. This was no different. The first shot came from the supply depot, silenced but deadly accurate. Reed ducked behind a crate, firing blindly. Torres returned fire, keeping the enemy pinned. Emma didn't fire immediately. Instead, she moved closer, silent as a shadow, watching Spectre coordinate the ambush with a small team of mercenaries. Cole muttered under his breath, "He's professional." "You weren't kidding." Emma's voice was low, calm, almost serene. "I know him. I've faced him before. He underestimates survivors." With a subtle hand gesture, she signaled Torres to move left. Reed, still shaking, nodded. Emma crept closer, keeping her body low to the ground. Spectre didn't notice. He was focused on the perimeter, thinking he had the upper hand. Emma fired a single round. The shot hit the ground near his feet. A warning. He looked up, eyes narrowing. "You?" he hissed. She stepped into view, rifle steady. "Yes, me." The team froze, even Cole. He had expected an ambush, but not the immediate recognition and precision with which she moved. Spectre's team hesitated. They hadn't anticipated her presence or skill. He cursed under his breath, raising his weapon. Chaos erupted. Bullets whizzed through the air. Emma's team moved with perfect synchronization, following her every signal. She fired only when necessary, aiming to disable, not kill, but her precision was terrifying. One man went down with a single hit to the leg. Another, disarmed by a perfectly timed tackle from Reed, groaned on the ground. Spectre moved fast, his skill undeniable. He engaged Emma directly. Each move she made was countered expertly. He was strong, fast, and ruthless, a mirror to her own deadly training. "You survived because you ran," he spat, circling her. "But you can't hide forever." "I'm not hiding," Emma said evenly, circling in return. "I'm standing." The firefight raged. Emma's team was executing perfectly, but the threat wasn't just Spectre's team. The base alarms had drawn attention, and every second brought reinforcements, some friendly, some unknown. Cole called over the radio. "All units converge on the eastern perimeter. Contain." Emma adjusted her aim. She fired a calculated shot that took out an advancing mercenary's rifle. Torres moved quickly to neutralize another threat. Reed's hands shook, but he managed to suppress a sniper. Amid the chaos, Emma's eyes never left Spectre. He smirked. "You think you've changed, Davis. You still bleed like anyone else." Her lips tightened. "You forget, survivors don't just bleed. We remember." With that, she launched herself forward, using her momentum to close the distance. Spectre lunged. Their bodies collided in a brutal, close-quarters struggle. Metal clashed. Boots scraped concrete. Every motion was lethal. Emma's training took over, the calm that had haunted Cole for weeks now guiding her. Minutes felt like hours. Cole watched from a distance, impressed and terrified. Emma's movements were flawless, strikes, blocks, counters, but she was tiring. Spectre was relentless, feeding off her aggression and control. Then, a moment, a misstep. Spectre's boot caught a loose rock. Emma seized the opportunity, twisting, delivering a precise strike to his chest. He staggered back, stunned. "Not enough," he hissed. Emma didn't pause. She pressed forward, pinning him against the wall, rifle at his throat. The storm outside thundered as if the universe itself acknowledged the standoff. She spoke low, dangerous, controlled. "Leave. Now. You're done chasing ghosts." Spectre's eyes flickered with rage, then calculation. He measured the odds. Slowly, he nodded, stepping back. Emma didn't relax until he disappeared into the shadows beyond the perimeter. The silence afterward was almost deafening. Only the pounding of their hearts and the distant waves of the Pacific broke it. Cole approached slowly, looking at Emma. "You didn't even flinch," he said quietly. "I didn't have time," she replied. Torres walked beside him, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like that. You didn't just fight, you led. Every move was perfect." Reed's voice trembled. I thought I was watching someone else. Not her. Not the lieutenant we've trained with." Emma lowered her rifle, body still tense. "You watched someone who survived hell. That's all." Cole placed a hand on her shoulder. "And that's enough." That night, the base was alive with aftershocks. Medics tending minor injuries, recruits whispering about the firefight, instructors debriefing with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Emma sat quietly, staring out at the ocean. The storm had passed, but the memory remained. Spectre wasn't gone, just retreating. He would return, and when he did, she had to be ready. Cole joined her, quiet. "You did well," he said. Emma nodded. "It's not over." "No," he agreed. "It's never over." The wind whipped past them, carrying the faint scent of salt and gunpowder. She closed her eyes, remembering Idlib, the ambush, and the survivors who hadn't made it. This was her life, a cycle of battles, survival, and vigilance. And she would endure. Because Emma Davis had already walked through death, stared it in the face, and refused to bow. The storm might return. Spectre might return. But one thing was certain. She was ready. The ocean roared. The base was quiet. But somewhere, deep inside, a fire burned, relentless, untouchable. And Emma Davis would see it through, no matter what came next. The base had barely settled after the last attack when reports came in. Unauthorized drones had been spotted along the coastline. Surveillance cameras had picked up figures moving under the cover of darkness, tactical patterns suggesting coordination. Emma Davis didn't need confirmation. Her gut told her Spectre had returned, and this time he wasn't alone. Cole paced the command center, a rare expression of unease etched into his face. All perimeter units reported. Torres, beside Emma, scanned the incoming feeds. They've coordinated their approach, he muttered, pointing to several heat signatures converging from multiple directions. And they're armed to the teeth. Emma studied the monitors, heart steady, mind racing. Each movement, each heat signature told a story, Spectre's story, and she knew he had only one objective, her elimination. Prepare to engage, she ordered, voice cutting through the tension. We don't have the luxury of hesitation. Cole's eyes narrowed. You take point. She nodded once, slipping her rifle over her shoulder with mechanical precision. There was no fear in her movements, only focus honed from years of surviving impossible odds. Outside, the wind carried the brine of the Pacific. The moon cast eerie shadows over the dunes, the sand crunching beneath the boots of the seals. Emma led her team along the perimeter, checking defensive positions. Every rock, every ridge, every shadow could conceal danger. She had learned that in war zones far from any base. Torres whispered, "You ever think about just walking away from this?" Emma's gaze didn't waver. You can walk away from fear. You can't walk away from who you are. They rounded the northern fence line, stopping as the first signs of intrusion appeared. Broken sensors, footprints leading toward the barracks. Emma's pulse remained steady, but her mind replayed Idlib, the ambush, the chaos. The way Spectre moved like a ghost among chaos. Spread out, she commanded. Silent approach. Use the shadows. Wait for my mark. Spectre's team was already inside the base. Silent, deadly, efficient. Emma's gut twisted, but her expression remained calm, the calm of someone who had stared death in the eye before. She signaled Reed and Torres, leading them through a narrow alley between two storage units. Her movements were a combination of fluidity and calculation, anticipating enemy reactions. A shadow flickered near a supply crate. Emma's rifle was up in a flash. Hold, she whispered. A mercenary stepped into view, rifle swinging blindly. A single controlled shot to the weapon's barrel disarmed him. The man fell to the ground, groaning, rifle useless. Move, she commanded, her team flowing with her. Inside the command center, Cole monitored the feeds. Bravo team, you're deep. Keep your eyes open. Emma nodded to Torres. Deploy flash grenades on my signal. We need to herd them toward the extraction point. Reed swallowed hard. Do you think Spectre's really here? Emma's eyes narrowed. He is, and he knows me. That changes everything. The first explosion, a flash grenade, echoed through the compound. Mercenaries shouted, scattering. Emma's team moved like shadows, silent and precise. Every movement calculated to control, not destroy, but the stakes were higher than any drill. From the shadows, Spectre appeared. His eyes locked onto Emma's with a predator's focus. You always survive, he growled. But not this time. Emma's reply was quiet, deadly. I don't survive. I endure. The two circled each other. Outside, gunfire erupted, Reed and Torres engaging the other mercenaries. Emma and Spectre were locked in a duel of wills and skill. Every strike, every block, every movement was measured. Spectre was stronger, more aggressive than the other mercenaries. But Emma had something he didn't: experience born from loss, and the calmness of someone who had seen death and refused to yield. He lunged. She sidestepped, delivering a swift, precise strike to his side. He staggered but recovered, eyes blazing with fury. "You think this ends here?" he hissed. "Not here," she replied. "When you let me go." Torres shouted behind them. "Emma, cover!" She pivoted, taking down another mercenary advancing from the shadows. Her rifle barked, each shot controlled, precise, no wasted movements, no unnecessary kills. Survival, she reminded herself. Protect her team. Protect the base. Protect herself. Spectre's eyes flickered with calculation. He realized brute force would not win here. He needed a different tactic. He drew a small device from his vest, a flash grenade, timed, and threw it toward Emma's position. She reacted instinctively, diving behind a barricade, the explosion throwing sand and debris into the air. Cole's voice came through the radio. "Hold positions. Reinforcements inbound." Emma's gaze swept the battlefield. She calculated distances, angles, and timing. Every mercenary had been accounted for. Except Spectre. She exhaled slowly. This wasn't just about skill. It was about outsmarting someone who had known her, who had once forced her to survive by crawling through her own blood. Minutes stretched into what felt like eternity. The mercenaries had been neutralized or trapped. Only Spectre remained. Emma stepped out from behind cover, rifle aimed, eyes locked on him. "You always knew where to find me," he said. "But I've changed." "Change doesn't matter," she replied evenly. "I adapt." He lunged, knife raised. Emma sidestepped, sweeping his legs, sending him crashing to the ground. The knife skidded across concrete, landing just out of reach. Emma didn't hesitate. She pressed the rifle to his chest, finger on the trigger. Silence fell over the base. "You leave now," she said softly, "and you never come back. Understand?" Spectre's chest heaved. His eyes flickered, rage, disbelief, calculation. Slowly, deliberately, he nodded. Emma didn't relax until he disappeared into the shadows beyond the perimeter. The base was quiet again. The adrenaline lingered, but there was no celebration. Only the weight of survival. Cole approached Emma, expression unreadable. "You didn't just neutralize him," he said quietly. "You led, protected your team, and held the line. All while controlling the battlefield." Emma lowered her rifle. "It's what I do." Torres, still catching his breath, shook his head. "I can't even. I don't have words." Reed finally spoke, voice trembling. "Lieutenant, that was insane. You didn't just survive. You dominated." Emma allowed herself a faint nod, though inside, her mind was already racing ahead. She knew this wasn't over. Spectre had retreated, not disappeared. And next time, he wouldn't hesitate. Cole studied her, then nodded slowly. "Rest. We'll debrief tomorrow. But tonight, you've earned some peace." Emma looked at the ocean, dark and endless. The storm had passed, but the horizon remained uncertain. Spectre would return. She knew it. Yet for the first time in years, she allowed herself a moment of quiet, not relief, not victory, just awareness. She had faced death, faced betrayal, faced an enemy who knew her best strategies, and survived. She sat on the dock, listening to the waves. The ocean roared, relentless as always. And deep inside, Emma Davis felt the familiar spark that had carried her through every battle, every ambush, every life-threatening ordeal. The refusal to break. This was not the end. It was simply another battle in a life forged by pain, resilience, and unyielding determination. And when Spectre returned, as she knew he would, Emma Davis would be ready. The storm had returned, heavy clouds rolling over Coronado. Rain lashed the base, wind tore through the perimeter fencing, and visibility was reduced to mere meters. Emma Davis stood on the observation deck, rifle in hand, scanning the shadows that clung to every corner. She knew this was it. Spectre wouldn't stop. He had been patient, retreating to regroup, to plan, but patience cut both ways. Emma's preparation had been meticulous. Every detail of the base had been reinforced, escape routes mapped, and every team member drilled in counter-ambush strategies. Cole approached silently, nodding toward her. "You ready?" Emma's gaze didn't leave the perimeter. "As ready as I'll ever be? He comes tonight. He doesn't leave alive. Not this time." Torres and Reed flanked her, both tense but alert. Vickers had joined the perimeter team, a nervous rookie whose respect for Emma had grown exponentially after the last engagement. The first signs came at 2,200 hours, the faintest shadow crossing the storm-lashed terrain. Emma squinted, adjusting her night scope. Movement, calculated, silent, deadly. Spectre had brought more than a few mercenaries this time. A squad of 6, armed with advanced weaponry, was approaching from the south. Emma's pulse remained steady. This wasn't her first encounter, but it was the most dangerous. "Positions," she commanded. "Silent. Wait for my mark." The team dispersed, hiding behind barricades, crates, and reinforced barriers. Every footstep, every whisper of the wind, every reflection of rain on metal became critical. Torres muttered, "He's learned from last time." Emma nodded, eyes tracking the approach. "So have I." Spectre appeared first, his silhouette sharp in the stormlight, weapon raised, eyes locked on hers. His lips curled into a predator's smile. "You've grown stronger," he called, voice carrying over the wind. "But strength alone won't save you." Emma's voice was steady, cutting. "Survival isn't about strength. It's about endurance." "And I endure." The first shots rang out, silenced rifles, precise, meant to test the perimeter. Emma signaled, and the team engaged. Bullets tore through the storm, ricocheting off metal, embedding in sandbags. The fight had begun. Emma moved like a shadow, rifle steady, clearing the southern flank. Each mercenary was met with calculated suppression, disarmament, or immobilization. Torres provided cover fire, while Reed coordinated defensive barriers. But Spectre wasn't just leading, he was hunting. He moved unpredictably, striking from angles Emma had anticipated, forcing her to adapt constantly. "You never learned." "To play fair," she said under her breath as he ducked behind a fallen container, only to emerge with a knife in hand. "And you never learned to quit," he countered, lunging. The two clashed, knife against rifle butt, strikes parried, kicks blocked, both moving with deadly grace. Emma could feel the storm in her bones, the rain soaking her uniform, mixing with the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Back at the command post, Cole and Vickers monitored the engagement through surveillance. "She's holding him," Cole muttered. But Spectre's persistent, too persistent. Vickers swallowed hard. "What if she can't?" Cole cut him off. "She will. Emma Davis doesn't break." The battle moved closer to the central compound. Emma's team executed coordinated maneuvers, isolating the mercenaries and neutralizing threats with precision. She knew Spectre's pattern. His tactics mirrored her own training. She anticipated his movements, using his own strategies against him. Finally, it came down to them. Emma and Spectre, standing amidst the rain-soaked rubble of the training yard. Exhausted, drenched, but unyielding. "You think you've won?" He spat. "This ends tonight, one way or another." Emma leveled her rifle, breathing controlled. "No, it ends when you leave. Alive or dead, I'm standing." They circled each other, rain hammering down, lightning flashing across the sky. Spectre lunged, knife slicing through the stormy night. Emma sidestepped, driving him to the ground, pinning him with her rifle pressed against his chest. "You forget," she said quietly, deadly. "I've survived worse than you. I've lost people you'll never understand. You underestimate me at your peril." Spectre's eyes flickered. Rage, fear, recognition. Slowly, deliberately, he nodded. The fight had ended in defeat for him, not because of brute force, but because Emma's calm, experience, and sheer endurance outmatched his aggression. The rest of the mercenaries were rounded up or fled into the storm, leaving the base silent once more. Emma stepped back, lowering her rifle, her body trembling from exhaustion, not fear. Cole approached, his expression unreadable, but his voice quiet. "You did it. You saved everyone, Davis. You didn't just survive. You led and protected every single life here." Emma exhaled, letting the tension leave her in slow waves. "It's over. For now." Torres, beside her, shook his head. "I've seen combat, but nothing like that. You're incredible." Reed's voice broke through, still shaky. "Lieutenant, I thought we'd lost you out there." Emma nodded faintly. "You don't lose people who refuse to be lost." Later that night, as the storm subsided, Emma walked alone to the pier, watching the Pacific waves crash against the rocks. Her rifle rested beside her, unused but ready. Cole joined her quietly. "Spectre's gone, but he'll be back. You know that." Emma's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. "I know, but every time he comes, I'll be ready. I survived worse than him. I endured, and that's what matters." Cole nodded, finally understanding. "You're more than a trainee, Davis. You're everything a SEAL should be." Emma allowed herself a faint smile, the first in days. "I just want to protect the people around me. That's all." Cole placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than that. You've saved lives. You've inspired them. You've shown them what it means to endure." She looked at him, eyes soft but resolute. "And I'll keep doing it as long as I have to." The ocean roared, relentless and eternal, a reminder that the world was full of storms, both literal and metaphorical. Emma Davis had faced them all, from the deserts of Idlib to the shores of Coronado, and had emerged stronger each time. The night air was cold, heavy with rain and salt, but Emma felt a sense of calm. For the first time, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had fought battles, faced enemies, endured personal loss, and yet here she stood, alive, unbroken, and resolute. Spectre had returned. She had defeated him. But her story, like the ocean before her, was endless, a testament to survival, resilience, and the unyielding human spirit. Emma Davis had proven one truth above all. You could lay wounded and silent, face betrayal and death, and yet still rise. Still fight, still endure. And the room, whether filled with recruits, medics, or commanding officers, would always freeze when her story began. Because she was not just a survivor. She was a force to be reckoned with. The storm had passed, for now. But Emma Davis would always be ready for the next one. The story ends here, with Emma Davis standing tall, having faced her past, protected her team, and survived the ultimate test of skill, courage, and endurance.